Letitia's alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., just as it did every morning. She groaned softly, her tired body protesting against another long day at the diner. But as always, she silenced the alarm, whispered a quick prayer, and got up to prepare for work. The worn-down apartment she called home was modest, but its walls carried the laughter and love of her family back in the Philippines through the memories they shared over occasional video calls. She pulled her long, dark hair into a ponytail, tied her simple white apron around her waist, and looked in the mirror. Her soft brown eyes were filled with exhaustion, but also determination. Today was just another day, another chance to serve customers with a smile and earn the tips she relied on to make ends meet. At the bustling diner downtown, Letitia was a familiar face. She greeted everyone who walked through the doors with a warm smile. Though her heavily accented English sometimes drew unwanted attention, her kindness shone through. "Good morning. Table for one?" she'd ask, her voice soft and full of warmth, even if the words didn't roll off her tongue smoothly. Most customers appreciated her kindness and effort, but not all were as understanding. Some would mimic her speech. Others would snicker as she struggled to pronounce a word correctly. Letitia was used to it. She learned to brush it off and focus on her work, finding solace in the rhythmic clinking of coffee cups and the smell of freshly cooked bacon wafting from the kitchen. Her coworkers adored her. Karen, a fellow waitress, often admired Letitia's resilience. "I don't know how you do it," Karen said one morning as they prepped for the lunch rush. "If someone mocked me like they mock you, I'd lose it." Letitia smiled gently, adjusting her apron. "It's okay. People can say what they want. I know who I am." But even Letitia couldn't deny that the comments sometimes stung. She worked tirelessly, balancing shifts at the diner and her passion for writing during late nights. Her life was a constant grind, but she was fueled by a quiet dream, one she kept hidden from the world. As the day progressed, the lunch crowd filled the diner. Letitia moved quickly between tables, taking orders, delivering plates, and offering her usual, "Enjoy your meal." A few regulars smiled back at her, appreciating her cheerful demeanor even if her words occasionally faltered. Others barely acknowledged her presence, treating her like she was invisible. At table 6, a pair of young women whispered and giggled after Letitia left their check. "Did you hear how she said scrambled?" One of them sneered, imitating her accent. Letitia heard it, but pretended not to. Instead, she headed back to the counter to grab the next order, her hands steady but her heart heavy. As she moved through her shift, Letitia remained composed. She didn't let the giggles, whispers, or condescending glances break her stride. She had bigger dreams than the small, fleeting moments of judgment others directed at her. By the time the lunch rush died down, Letitia had a brief moment to catch her breath. She poured herself a cup of coffee and gazed out the window at the busy street outside. A small smile crept onto her face as she thought about the novel she was working on. It was her safe space, her sanctuary. For Letitia, storytelling was more than a passion. It was her escape from a world that often misunderstood her. Her reprieve was short-lived, though. The bell above the door jingled, signaling the arrival of a new customer. Letitia straightened her apron and turned, ready to greet them with the same warmth she always did, unaware that this customer would change her life forever. The man who walked through the door stood out immediately. His tailored suit, polished leather shoes, and gleaming watch screamed wealth. He exuded the confidence or arrogance of someone used to being treated as superior. Letitia approached him as she did every customer, her voice warm despite her fatigue. "Good afternoon, sir. Table for one?" The man barely glanced at her, his eyes scanning the room as though deciding if the establishment was worthy of his presence. "Yeah, whatever," he muttered, waving his hand dismissively. Karen, wiping down the counter nearby, raised an eyebrow and muttered under her breath, "Here we go." Letitia led the man to a booth by the window, setting the menu in front of him. "Please take your time, sir. I'll be back to take your order." Yeah, he said, not looking up. Gregory Kingston, as he later introduced himself, was a prominent businessman. He had climbed the corporate ladder in record time, earning a reputation for his ruthlessness. He prided himself on knowing the best of everything: restaurants, wine, and certainly the people he deemed worth his attention. A diner like this wasn't his usual scene, but he was in town for a meeting and hadn't wanted to wait for a reservation elsewhere. As Letitia approached his table to take his order, Gregory's tone sharpened. "Let's keep this quick. I have a meeting soon," he said, tapping his gold-plated pin on the table. "I'll have the steak, medium rare, and make sure it's cooked properly. I don't want to send it back." Letitia nodded, jotting down his order on her notepad. "Yes, sir. Steak, medium rare. It will be ready soon." Gregory's eyes narrowed as she spoke, picking up on her accent. "Where are you from?" he asked, his tone more curious than kind. Letitia hesitated, unused to such direct questions. "The Philippines, sir." He smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Figures. Your English, well, it's not great, is it? But I suppose that's to be expected." Letitia blinked, taken aback by his bluntness. "I try my best, sir," she replied softly. Gregory waved her off dismissively. "Just make sure you don't mess up the order." Karen, passing by with a tray of drinks, shot Letitia a sympathetic look. But Letitia's face remained calm as she walked back to the counter to place his order. She'd heard comments like this before, comments that questioned her intelligence or value because of her accent. It wasn't new, but it still hurt. As Gregory waited for his food, he scrolled through his phone, pausing to admire a book he had been reading. It was a bestseller that had taken the business world by storm, full of innovative ideas and brilliant storytelling. He had even quoted it in meetings, earning admiration from his peers. The author, however, was a mystery, writing under the pen name L.T. Rivera. Gregory had always wondered about the genius behind the words, imagining someone sophisticated and worldly, someone completely unlike the waitress who had just taken his order. When Letitia returned with his steak, Gregory looked up and said, "You took your time. My apologies, sir. I hope everything is to your liking," Letitia said carefully, setting the plate down. He barely acknowledged her, cutting into the steak. As he chewed, he looked up, his expression mocking. "You know, if you're going to stay in this country, you should really work on your English. It's embarrassing." Karen gasped audibly from behind the counter, but Letitia didn't flinch. Instead, she nodded slightly and replied, "Thank you for your feedback, sir. Please enjoy your meal." As she walked away, Gregory chuckled to himself, convinced he had put her in her place. Letitia, meanwhile, retreated to the kitchen, gripping the counter for support as she took a deep breath. She had endured worse, but today the weight of his words felt heavier. Still, she reminded herself of her mantra: stay calm, stay kind, stay strong. Gregory finished his meal, paid the check with a generous tip as if to show he was above reproach, and left without a second glance. Letitia watched him go, grateful for the reprieve, but unaware that their paths were destined to cross again in a way neither of them could have imagined. The following evening, as the diner hummed with activity, Letitia found herself lost in thought. Her life, a constant balancing act of long shifts and sleepless nights, had shaped her stories. Those stories, written under the name L.T. Rivera, had inspired countless readers. And one day, even Gregory Kingston would come to see her for who she truly was.